If you have ever walked through a medieval church, crossed an ancient bridge, or studied the remains of a centuries-old fortification, you have likely encountered a quiet contradiction. The wood should be gone. Rain, insects, fungi, and time should have erased it long ago. Yet beams still stand, doors still hang, and foundations still hold. This was not luck, and it was not magic. Medieval builders understood wood at a level modern construction has largely forgotten, and their methods produced timber that resisted rot for generations. This guide is written for those who care about how things actually worked. Not myths, not romantic exaggeration, but repeatable techniques grounded in observation and discipline. By the end, you will understand how medieval people selected, treated, and installed wood so effectively that some of it still outperforms modern lumber. So, why did medieval builders treat rot as an enemy rather than just an inconvenience? Well, in the medieval world, replacing timber was expensive, dangerous, and honestly, pretty slow. Felling trees took a lot of labour. Transporting those massive timbers was really difficult. And, the construction seasons were actually quite short. A rotting beam wasn't just a minor repair, not at all. It could actually mean collapse, injury, or even death. Builders, knowing this, designed with longevity in mind, always assuming that their structures would need to endure for generations, not just a few decades. This mindset, you see, shaped every single decision they made. Wood was chosen, cut, dried, treated, and installed with a clear understanding that moisture and microorganisms were the real enemies here. The goal wasn't to fight rot after it showed up, but rather to deny it the conditions it needed to exist in the first place. The fate of medieval timber really depended on how trees were chosen in the first place. The whole process, it started long before any actual building began. Builders back then would select trees quite carefully, considering things like species, age, and even the conditions in which the trees grew. They especially preferred slow-grown timber from those dense old forests, since wood with tight growth rings held less internal moisture, and as a result was much more resistant to decay. Oak, chestnut, and larch. These woods were highly valued, not just because they were strong, but also thanks to their natural tannins and resins. Those compounds made a real difference, helping to ward off fungal growth and preserve the timber for centuries. Timing, as it turns out, was absolutely crucial. Trees were most often felled in the winter months when sap was at its lowest. This meant there were fewer sugars in the wood, which made it a far less inviting meal for fungi and insects. And, interestingly, in some regions, folks would even follow lunar calendars for cutting, based on generations of observation that certain lunar periods seemed to yield more durable timber. Now, when it comes to seasoning, it wasn't just about putting things off, but rather it was a true method of preservation. Freshly cut wood was never, rushed straight into use. In the medieval era, seasoning was a slow and deliberate process. Logs would be carefully stacked off the ground, shielded from rain and given plenty of steady airflow. And honestly, this process could take years to complete. The aim, really, wasn't just to dry the wood out, but to achieve stability. When wood was properly seasoned, it expanded and contracted far less, which meant fewer cracks where moisture could sneak in. Interestingly, in some situations, beams were actually partially buried or even submerged in water during the early stages. This helped leach out the sap before any drying began. It might sound a bit odd, but this step removed nutrients that would otherwise encourage rot, leaving behind a much more inert material once everything was dry. Now, let's talk about how surface treatments could turn wood into a really hostile environment for rot. One of the most effective medieval techniques was actually surface carbonization. The outer layer of wood was deliberately charred, especially at those ground contact points. This created a carbon-rich barrier that sealed the pores, reduced moisture absorption, and, discouraged insects from having a go at it. After that, tar, pitch and oil treatments came into play. Pine tar, which was derived from slow-burning resinous wood, was brushed into surfaces, penetrating deeply and creating a good bit of water resistance. This method was common in shipbuilding, but it was also used on posts, beams and foundations. These substances stayed flexible, moving with the wood rather than cracking away, which was honestly quite clever. Now, how did medieval builders defeat moisture through design rather than just relying on materials? Well, perhaps the most overlooked secret was installation. Medieval structures were designed to shed water relentlessly, making sure moisture never had much of a chance to settle in. Beams were elevated from soil using stone footings. Roof overhangs were extended to keep walls dry. Joints were cut to channel water away rather than trap it. Even wooden pegs were oriented with grain direction in mind, swelling to seal joints when exposed to humidity. Floors were raised, walls ventilated, and crawl spaces left open. Rot requires stagnant moisture. Medieval builders refused to give it shelter. When archaeologists uncover wooden structures preserved for centuries, they often find multiple techniques layered together. Proper species selection, winter felling, long seasoning, surface charring, tar application, and intelligent design all worked in combination. If you remove any one element, well, longevity suffered, plain and simple. But together they created wood that really endured, standing the test of time. This is why, some medieval timbers remain sound even today, while modern pressure-treated wood, well, it fails in just a few decades. The medieval approach respected wood as a living material with predictable behaviour, not just a standardised product off a shelf. So, how can modern builders and survivalists apply these methods today? Well, these techniques remain accessible honestly. Selecting slow-grown lumber, allowing extended seasoning, charring ground contact surfaces, and sealing with natural oils or pine tar can, dramatically extend lifespan. Designing structures to stay dry does more than any chemical treatment ever will. Even small applications matter. Fence posts, raised beds, sheds and cabins benefit immediately from these principles. The steps require time and attention, not advanced technology. Why medieval rot-proofing still matters. This knowledge challenges the assumption that progress always means improvement. Medieval builders worked without modern tools, yet produced results modern construction struggles to match. Their success came from patience, observation, and respect for materials. If this exploration of forgotten medieval craftsmanship deepened your understanding of history and practical survival wisdom, subscribe to the channel and share this guide with others who value knowledge that stands the test of time.